Welcome to the first part of the history of China. I hope you like it.
Old period of China. The Old period of China covers from the first vestiges of human settlements until the end of the Qin dynasty in 221 BC. This period is characterized by the development of complex agricultural societies, the formation of the first states, and the consolidation of the cultural and political bases that would shape Chinese history. Below is a summary of the main events and dynasties of this period. Early Neolithic, circa 10,000 to 2000 BC. The development of agriculture marked a crucial milestone in the history of humanity, leading to the transition of societies hunter-gatherer to sedentary agricultural communities. Here is a summary of the key stages in the development of agriculture. Early Neolithic, circa 10,000 to 8000 BC. Discovery of agriculture. The first human communities began to experiment with the domestication of plants and animals. Plant cultivation. Cereals such as wheat and barley were grown in the growing fertile Middle East, and rice in Southeast Asia. Animal domestication. Humans began to tame animals to obtain meat, milk, and skins. Development of agriculture, circa 8000 to 4000 BC. Sedentarization. With the practice of agriculture, communities began to establish themselves permanently in propitious areas for cultivation. Agricultural innovations. Development of agricultural tools, such as plows and hoechays, which facilitated planting and harvesting. Population growth. The availability of stable foods allowed an increase in the human population. Era of the Great Discoveries, circa 4000 to 2000 BC. Dissemination of agriculture. Agricultural practices were disseminated from the initial centers, fertile growing, China, Mesoamerica, etc., to other parts of the world. Specific crops by region. Different regions adopted specific crops according to climatic and geographical conditions. Agriculture in old societies, circa 2000 BC. 500 AD. Agriculture in ancient societies. Great civilizations, such as those of Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, India, and Mesoamerica, depended largely on agriculture for their livelihood. Development of advanced techniques. Implementation of advanced techniques, such as irrigation systems, to increase agricultural productivity. Middle Ages, 500 to 500. Feudalism and agriculture. In Europe, the domino feudal system, and agriculture was the basis of the feudal economy. Crop rotation. Crop rotation was introduced, a practice that improved soil fertility. Agricultural Revolution, 18th–19th century. Technological innovations. Advances such as the invention of the steam machine and improvements in agricultural tools transformed agriculture. Change in production methods. The agricultural revolution led to greater mechanization, use of more efficient fertilizers and techniques. Contemporary agriculture, 20th century. News, industrial agriculture. The mechanization and industrialization of agriculture increased efficiency but also raised environmental and sustainability problems. Green Revolution. Introduction of improved crops varieties and the extensive use of fertilizers and pesticides to increase production. Focus on sustainability. In recent decades, there has been a growing approach to sustainable and environmental agricultural practices. Agriculture has been a fundamental factor in human development, feeding increasing populations and allowing the emergence of complex civilizations throughout history. Its evolution has been key to the configuration of societies and economies worldwide. Yangshao culture. The Yangshao culture was an early Neolithic civilization that flourished in the Yellow River Basin in China, between 5000 and 3000 BC. This culture is known for its distinctive ceramics painted and their agricultural settlements. Here is a summary of the Yangshao culture. Main characteristics. Painted ceramics. Yangshao ceramics is one of the most distinctive characteristics of this culture. Ceramic vessels and utensils decorated with geometric patterns, wavy lines, and stylized human and animal figures. Ceramics often presents red and black colors. Agricultural society. Yangshao communities were based on agriculture as the main means of subsistence. Cereal culture such as millet and rice, as well as the domestication of animals such as pigs and dogs. Sedentary settlements. Yangshuo communities lived in sedentary settlements, in homes made of adobe and wood. Some settlements had defensive structures, such as ditches and embankments. Tools and technology.
Use of stone and bone tools for agriculture and hunting. Early technologies development for ceramic production. Social organization. It is believed that Yangshuo society was relatively equal, without clear evidence of marked social stratification. Funeral rituals. Distinctive funeral practices, such as burials in fetal position and funeral offerings that included ceramics and personal objects. Religion and symbolism. Figurillas and ritual objects have been found that suggest the presence of religious or symbolic beliefs. Human and animal figures in ceramics can have ritual or spiritual meanings. Decline and legacy. Decline. Yangshuo culture experienced a gradual decline towards 3000 BC, and its disappearance is attributed to factors such as climatic changes, demographic pressures, and population movements. Legacy. Although the Yangshuo culture disappeared, its legacy lasted in the subsequent traditions of Chinese civilization. It represents a significant step in the transition from nomadic societies to more complex agricultural settlements in the region. Yangshuo culture is an early testimony of human development in China, providing valuable information about the early stages of community agriculture and life in the Yellow River Basin. Xia Dynasty, circa 2100–1600 BC. The Xia Dynasty is considered the first dynasty in Chinese history, although its existence has been the subject of debate and some consider it more as a legend than a proven historical fact. According to traditional stories, the Xia dynasty ruled approximately from 900 to 1600 BC. Here is a summary of the Xia dynasty. Main characteristics. Legendary foundation. Xia is considered the first Chinese dynasty, founded by Yu el Grande, who stood out for its flood management skills in the Yellow River region. Sage King's government. The Xia dynasty is said to be governed by a series of 9 monarchs, known as wise kings, which were appreciated for their wisdom and virtue. Agriculture and development. During the Xia dynasty, it is claimed that there were advances in agriculture and in the management of water resources to prevent floods. Decline and succession. The Xia dynasty came to an end with King Jia, who is described in legends as a tyrannical ruler. According to the stories, Jia was overthrown by the tribal leader Zhou, marking the end of the Xia dynasty and the beginning of the Zhou dynasty. Controversies and historical debate. Historical sources. The existence of the Xia dynasty is largely based on ancient historical texts, such as records of the great historian, of Sima Qian, and on mythological and legendary stories. Lack of archaeological evidence. To date, no solid archaeological evidence has been found that conclusively support the existence of the Xia dynasty, which has led to the controversy and skepticism. Possible historical basis. Some historians suggest that, although the traditional narrative may contain mythological elements, there could be an underlying historical basis, with prehistoric tribal leaders who could have ruled the region before the Zhou dynasty. In summary, the Xia dynasty represents an early period in Chinese history, characterized by legendary figures and mythological narratives. Although the lack of solid archaeological evidence has led to some controversy over its existence, it remains an integral part of the Chinese historical and cultural tradition. Shang dynasty, circa 1600 to 1046 BC. The Shang dynasty was one of China's first historical dynasties and is considered the second in traditional Chinese chronology, happening to the mythical Xia dynasty. Although some specific details of the dynasty are subject to debate due to the lack of contemporary written evidence, numerous archaeological vestiges that support their existence have been discovered and provide information about their society and culture. Here is a summary of the Shang dynasty. Main characteristics. Foundation and capital. The Shang dynasty is believed to be founded around 1600 BC, establishing its capital in Yin, currently the city of Anyang, in the Yellow River Basin. Stratified society. The Shang society was highly stratified with a landowner aristocracy at the top, priests and bureaucrats in the middle, and farmers and artisans in the base. Economy and agriculture. The Shang economy was based on agriculture, with crops such as millet and rice, as well as the breeding of animals such as pigs and water buffalo. Oracular writing and records. Development of oracular writing in bones and turtle shells to make divinations. These oracles provide valuable information about everyday life and historical events. Religion and beliefs. Prominent religious practices that included the worship of ancestors and belief in spiritual forces. King Shang was seen as an intermediary between the human world and the gods. Bronze and ceramics. Shang dynasty is known for its advanced metallurgy skills, particularly in the manufacture of elaborately decorated bronze objects. Ceramics were also an important art form, with painted and sculpted ceramics. Decadence and fall. The Shang dynasty experienced a gradual decline, with external and internal challenges, such as invasions of neighboring tribes and the possible internal rebellion. In 1046 BC, the Shang dynasty was overthrown by the Zhou dynasty, marking the beginning of a new era in China. Historical significance. Advances in scripture. Shang's oracular scripture is one of the first known Chinese writing systems, and registration in bones and caparazones have provided valuable information about the life and events of the time. Cultural legacy. Art and advanced techniques in the manufacture of bronze and ceramics left a durable cultural legacy that influenced successive dynasties. Distic transition. The transition from the Shang dynasty to the Zhou dynasty marked a key moment in Chinese history, symbolizing the change from one era to another. The Shang dynasty left a significant footprint in Chinese history, contributing to the cultural and technological development of the region and laying the foundations for subsequent dynasties. Transition period. Zhou and Eastern Zhou, 1046–256 BC. The transition period of Zhou dynasties, which covers both the Western Zhou and the Eastern Zhou, marked a significant period in Chinese history. This period extends from the overthrow of the Shang dynasty in 1046 BC until the final collapse of the Zhou dynasty in 256 BC and is divided into two phases. Occidental Zhou, 1046–771 BC, and East Zhou, 770–256 BC. Zhou Western, 1046–771 BC, establishment of the Zhou domain. The Zhou dynasty, led by King Wu, overthrew the Shang dynasty, justifying its action with the idea of the mandate of heaven. The capital moved to the city of Luoyang. Development of feudalism. To consolidate power, the Zhou dynasty established a feudal system, giving land and power to the military nobility in reward for loyal services. Zhou philosophy. Important philosophers appeared, such as Confucius and Laozi, whose ideas influenced Chinese philosophy. Confucius promoted ethics and morality, while Laozi was fundamental in the development of Taoism. Barbarian invasions. During this period, the invasions of barbaric tribes at western borders began to weaken the centralized power of the Zhou dynasty. Decline and transfer of the capital. Internal tensions and invasions led to the decline of the West Zhou. In 771 BC, the capital moved to the city of Luoyi due to barbarian threats. Spring and Autumn period, 771–476 BC. Decentralization of power. The Zhou dynasty experienced a decentralization process, with feudal states gaining autonomy and power. Conflict between states. Chinese feudal states were involved in constant conflicts known as Spring and Autumn Wars, competing for control and supremacy. Zhou Oriental, 770–256 BC. Time of combatant kingdoms, 475–221 BC. The continuous weakening of the central authority led to the period of the combatant kingdoms, an era characterized by the struggle between several states for control. Philosophies and thought. Other important philosophies appeared, such as legalism, which advocated strong control and use of punishment as a means to maintain order. Confucius reforms. Confucius proposed ethical and moral reforms as a solution to restore social stability. Unification under the Qin dynasty, 221 BC. King Zheng de Qin managed to unify China in 221 BC, establishing the Qin dynasty and ending the period of the combatant kingdoms. The transition period of Zhou dynasties was a time of deep changes in China's political and philosophical structure. Marked by the decentralization of power, conflicts between states and the emergence of important philosophies, this period prepared the land for the subsequent unification of China under the Qin dynasty.